you there. So we're just going to make a start on the webinar today. I'm Catherine Common. I'm the Communications Manager for the Great North Care Record. So this webinar is part of a series that we're doing over the course of the year, and really it's just to kind of bring you up to date with different elements of the programme. We thought a session on Discourse would be really useful. We've been using Discourse for about 18 months or so now. We've got quite a lot of members on there, so it was really just to sort of help you get the best out of that. I'll briefly introduce you to Lou Wilson, who I was obviously worked with on the Great North Care Record, and I'm sure many of you know who she is. Lou is the professional engagement lead for the programme, and she kind of looks after the network as a whole. We've also got Marcus Bohr, who's remotely dialing in from Yorkshire, and he's going to sort of lead the session and just sort of take you through some of his sort of top tips. We're recording the session today, so you will be able to see a recording afterwards, and we'll upload it onto our YouTube channel. If you've got any questions, just ask them as we're going through. There is a Q&A function, and Marcus can see those as well, so hopefully be able to answer them as we go along. So yeah, hand it over to Lou.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks everybody for joining us today. So Discourse is the online space that the Great North Care Record Network uses. We've got approaching 700 members now. It's the platform that we use to that we set up to connect and have conversations. It's not the actual Great North Care Record, but there will be an opportunity to see the HIE at a webinar in July. So we set up the Great North Care Record Network to bring together a community of practitioners from health and social care and the voluntary sector and industry. And its purpose is to create spaces and occasions for mutual inspiration, collective learning, collective working, collaboration and sharing. There is such a massive wealth of expertise and insight and experience amongst our membership that we've got that common aim of making the North East North Cumbria the best place in the world to get care and the best place in the world to do research. And Discourse is key to that. So over to Marcus, our open source wizard, who's going to talk us through making the most of our Great North Care Record Network membership. Marcus.
Hello. Hi. So you have to excuse my voice. I'm actually recovering from whooping cough, of all things, which I thought I'd just keep under my hat, because last time we had to cancel the Discourse webinar because I was ill as well. So we'll get through it today. So I will share my screen, and then you'll be able to see Discourse. So this is the discourse.org. This is the actual software that we use. And although it might seem sort of a bit trivial, like, you know, just why would you use any specific software? Isn't all forum software as good as any other? I'm a big fan of Discourse. It's an open source piece of software, which means that the source code is publicly shared, and that means that people like me, for example, can see how it's built, and we can build extensions to it and plugins for it, and we can improve it. So that's a really nice, it's a demonstration of how good an open source piece of software can work. And I also like the fact that they use this term a lot, civilized discussion, because I think the founders of Discourse were a bit frustrated with the web as it was, with social media and Twitter and Reddit and other kinds of forums, where there was generally quite a low level of discussion in that people were quite rude. And so they built Discourse with the intention of it being for civilized discussion, and it has lots of tools within it to help you as an organizer of a community to keep things nice and friendly, and so it's kind of helpful for us. I'm actually a GP in Yorkshire, and I got involved in Discourse because of the National CSIO network, which some of you may be members of or may be aware of. And this network was originally on a Google group, and then they wanted to move to something that was a little bit better, so we moved to Discourse after a long period of looking at various different options. And I agreed to run it, excuse me, I agreed to run it for digital health, and I'm still running it for digital health. And then over time, other people have come along and said, can we have a discourse? So I'm now running a few different discourses. I will show you now what the Great North Care Records discourse looks like. So I'm just going to move it to this side. No, I'm going to move that. Okay, so that is the Great North Care Records discourse. And like Lou said, it's not the Great North Care Record, and I think that's quite important. The Great North Care Record is a data sharing initiative across a large area of the Northeast. And this is our discussion room in which we can talk about it. So it's a great place to talk about very specifically on topic things like the technical details of how the Great North Care Record will work, and there are groups within this discourse that talk about that. And then all the stuff that goes around that. So how do we engage with stakeholders? And one of the ways we do that is by inviting the stakeholders to join this network discourse, and they can ask their questions and they can interface very directly with the people who are building the Great North Care Record. So it gives you a window into the project, and it gives the people in the project an opportunity to speak to the people who are going to end up using it. So I'm logged in here as a training account that I've created, and I'm going to take you through how to use Discourse, how to get the most out of it, because I think although people quite often understand why we've done it, why we've built this thing, maybe it's a bit over-facing initially because it's a huge white screen full of text, and you think, well, where do I start? What should I read first? And how do I get involved a bit more? So, okay. So first of all, if you didn't have an account, then by going to forum.greatnorthcarerecord.org.uk, you will see there's a front page for non-logged in users, and it invites you to email Louise or Catherine, who will arrange an account for you, and they'll send you an invitation, and then you'll be able to join and see what we can see here. The layout of the thing is quite simple. This is just all the latest posts in time order. And as you can see, if I carry on scrolling down, it will keep loading older ones and older ones and older ones. So it's kind of, it means that you never have one of these things where you've got to go to page 2, page 3, page 4, like you do on some forums. It will just load it all for you. You can use the navigation at the top to go and have a look at new topics. Well, I've got a new topic that I haven't read there because I created one just earlier, an unread topic, because I replied to it from another account. And then you've got top top topics that have been created. So these are ones that have received the most views and the most interest. So it's sort of complicated algorithm of how many replies, how many views, and the activity and recentness of activity that it uses to work out what top means. You can also have a look at the categories. Now, for me, as a training account, I can see the training area, which I've just created, and then the atrium, which is probably the most popular area of Discourse. And these are called categories. These are sort of sections. We can create as many sections as we want, and there are some private sections which we don't see on this view because my training account is not a member of those private sections. But some of you may have access to the private sections, and we can I can show you a bit more about how private sections work if there's a need for that at the end. So we've also got things like productivity tips, which is kind of handy. It's a way of sharing useful things across the network and say, well, I work like this, I found it useful, and sharing that with my community. The atrium, as I said, is a common place where we put a lot of our sort of general chit chat about things that are happening in the Northeast around healthcare, IT, but also stuff to do with the Great North Care Record. One thing that is probably worth saying at this stage is just that some people ask me, why would we use this and not an email news group kind of thing, or an email list server? And I think the answer is kind of in the phrase called organizational memory. And if you imagine a list server, when you join a list server, you don't have any of the history of that list server. You just get the new ones sent to you as they're created. So I'm on various list servers for other things, and when I joined, there may have been a useful topic from the week before I joined, which I don't get to see. And unless someone forwards me that, I haven't got access to it. With forums, it's very different. You have access to everything, the entire history of that forum when you join. So it means that as a new member, you can jump onto the Great North Care Record and think, I have a question. Rather than just ask that as a new question, I could actually search and say, has this already been answered? And that's what really sort of drives the power of forums, in that once you've got a body of community discussion on there, the community solves the community's problems. So rather than requiring lots of support from technical people, or from if you're asking a question about the Great North Care Record, for example, that representative from the GNCR having to repeat themselves and continuously re-answer the question. Once they've answered the question in a forum, it's always there. So you could search for anything. So I don't know, let's just search for a post and see what comes up. So I'm searching here for Anne. I just had a look for something that would have a... So if I was interested in this Anne project, but I didn't know where to look for it, I just search. So search button is your friend. That is at the top right here. So I'll start going through the user interface a little bit more. So this search button allows you to search for anything. You can search for users, you can search for tags, you can search for categories, and of course, most commonly, you can search for topics and posts within those topics for anything that you're particularly interested in. So like I suggested before, maybe I'm interested in productivity. So this is all posts that mention productivity in any way. And the search is really, really fantastic. So I always encourage people, if you're interested in a particular thing, get in there, search for what you're interested in. If you're thinking about posting and creating a new thread, always search on that, on some terms relating to that before you post, because you might find there's already a discussion underway, in which case you don't need to start your new thread. You could add to the existing one. And that's kind of part of the civilized discussion mindset, which is to try and keep things tidy. So rather than, as some email threads can get very untidy, where people will just start a new discussion via email or a new list server thread willy-nilly, even though there are existing threads. With a forum, it's really nice if you can try and find the existing threads, read them, and then add to them. Often you find that you didn't need to actually ask the question, because when you read the existing thread, you go, oh, right, well, that's answered my question, so I don't need to ask. And that's the real power of forums. So over here on the right, we've got an advanced search section. Up on the top right are your kind of user controls. So this, what they call a hamburger menu, 3 lines kind of thing, contains things like links to keyboard shortcuts, the about page for this discourse, our frequently asked questions, and then you can go to categories. You can also go to a lot of the things that were on the navigation that I went through before. You can have a look at users and see who's around. So these are all the list of all the users that we have. There are some user groups, and some of these groups are open, like Cafe Informatica. You can just join that by clicking on the join button, and then you'll be able to see content that's in the Cafe Informatica area. So that's, for example, if I join that, when I go back to the listing and see my categories, I can see Cafe Informatica, which is it's interesting. That should be working. There we go. So Cafe Informatica is a little pub-based informatics discussion group in the Northeast. So you can join and see new areas. You can also look at badges. Badges are a little gimmick, I suppose, that Discourse has, which are kind of encourages, again, good participation in the community. So, and you get a badge when you fill out your profile information. You get the autobiographer badge. When you use an emoji in a post, you get the first emoji. When you quote somebody, you get a first quote. And what these are doing is kind of encouraging people to use all the features and play with the features that are in Discourse and make the most of it. And I'll sort of show you through some of these features as we go. So then this little T thing here is actually my avatar, but because I haven't put a picture in, it's just come up with T for training Marcus. So some of you, when you start, will have just a letter like that. So let's fix that. I can change my username if I wanted to. I could put in my surname here maybe, and then save the changes. I can reset my email, reset my password, sorry, from here. I can change my email if I need to. So this is all my sort of user controls accessed from this T button at the top here, and then clicking the sprocket. So that's what got me here. So going across the top, I can see a summary of my activity kind of thing. That's sort of generally about me as a user. How long have I been a member? How long have I been reading stuff? How many posts did I read? How many likes have I given? This is the kind of stuff that I've been posting. So at the moment, because this is a new training account, I've only posted one post. Then we've got some notifications. Messages. So I can send private messages to people. So let's send a private message to my other user, which is Marcus Bohr. And then say, just saying hi. And then I have to put something in here. It won't let me send a blank message. Over on the right here, in the composer view, which is whenever we start writing anything in a discourse, we get this composer. And there's a pop-up here, like a little post-it note almost, saying, thanks for contributing. And it gives you the first time you discuss something, it starts again guiding you towards how to be a nice member of the community. So criticize ideas, not people. You know, does your reply improve the conversation and get people to think about what they're writing? Now, of course, in a professional group like the Great North Care Record, we have no real problem with adverse conversational behaviour, because people behave professionally, because it's part of their job to to have some role in developing the Great North Care Record, so by and large we don't have any problems like that. But you can imagine that in other types of discourse instance, you might need to encourage the kind of wider general public to just think about how they talk to each other, and because what we don't want is it to degenerate into kind of how some threads on Facebook can become quite quickly, which are very adversarial and unpleasant within a matter of a couple of posts. So you can get rid of this little pop-up, and what you see then is the stuff on the left is my typing, and the stuff on the right is my preview. So I can't edit the things on the right directly, I edit it over here. And what you can start to see is that I have some styling tools up here. So I could make that bold, and over this side you can see the preview. On the left you'll see that my clicking the bold button added these little stars around the word saying, and that's something called Markdown, which if you're interested I can discuss a little bit more at the end. Markdown is a very, very simple way of formatting text, and it's used by thousands of different projects on the web. It's a bit sort of daunting at first because you think, hang on, I've got to memorize how to do all this code. But actually, for Discourse, you don't. You can just use the point and click buttons here on this row. But when you get into Markdown, you find that sometimes it's actually just quicker. So one set of stars around something makes it italic. And as you can see on this side, that's italicized that word. If I can undo it, I can make it bold and undo it. We can add links. So if I were to add a hyperlink to, well, I would just use an example. Well, let's use that because that won't take us anywhere. Let's create a link on this side. And the link doesn't go anywhere because I've deliberately set it up to not go anywhere. But anything, if you wanted to link to something, so you've got a button there, creates a link, but you can actually copy and you can directly edit them. And that's where the sort of power of Markdown starts to become clearer as you use it a little bit more. And as I say, there's absolutely no reason why you need to use Markdown, but this is something that's there. Once you start getting into, if you were making a more long form discussion, then you might want to create some sections, and that can be done in Markdown as well. So you start to develop some formatting tools essentially. So I won't go too much further into the formatting tools, but suffice to say that they're all here. You can make links, you can create a block quote, you can upload things. So if we wanted to upload a document, we can just choose it from, let's see what I've got that we can, let's upload something about GP at hand. So I can upload a PowerPoint. I can upload a document, a docx, all the common Office-based file formats are allowed, and that will be saved into my post. So, okay, let's save that. And now, so I've created a message to other me, Marcus Ball, which has a link in it. If I, or do I take the link out? And then I've got a downloadable file attachment there. So if I click on that, it will download it. So you can see how you can start to use Discourse as a kind of knowledge base. So I happen to have sent a private message, but it works exactly the same. All the composer tools are exactly the same if I was writing a post. So on that note, let's go and let's find my training area. And I created a webinar topic. So that was my original post here, Training Marcus, Discourse webinar. And then other me replied to say, have you thought about adding an avatar image? And actually that's what I was going to do, wasn't it? So let's go back there. Upload a picture. I happen to have an old avatar. We can use that. There's my old avatar, looking quite serious, and with slightly longer hair. So I've added an avatar. So let's go back to my topic, and you can see that where it did say T, it's now got a picture of me. And I do find that people engage better with an individual if they can see the face. I think it sort of makes it clear that you're not a corporate account, you're not a bot, you're actually a person and you're discussing things. And it makes it easier to feel that you're having a real conversation, even though it's in text form and maybe separated by thousands of miles potentially, and across time as well, because these threads can go on for months or years. But again, seeing the person's face just makes it more real. So let's reply. So I showed you the tools for bold, italic, links, uploads. This is bulleted list and numbered list, which is kind of obvious if you've used, say, Word, for example. You've got a whole palette of emoji, and although, you know, it's a professional discussion forum, but sometimes emoji are kind of nice. The reason emoji have evolved is because they are there to convey emotion in a text format. And one of the things that text discussion struggles to do sometimes is convey whether somebody is annoyed or somebody's happy about something quite as well as when you're face to face. You have all those visual cues and body language cues that warn you perhaps if you've said something and somebody else is replying that they didn't like it, whereas you lose all that with text. And so emoji do have a function, even though that, you know, it can seem a bit frivolous, but I think sometimes it's quite nice to use emoji, particularly in friendly chit-chat type things. Obviously varying with the seriousness of the post you're trying to make, I guess. You don't want to undermine the gravitas of what you're saying. I'll leave insert date and time because that's probably not that critical, but you can play with that feature. And then there are some little extra options. One of the ones that's quite nice is to be able to build a poll. I won't go into detail on that, but if you want to play with that, you can actually create a post that is a poll. So you supply the poll options, and you can let people have however many votes they want, and you can choose whether you want to display the voters or not display the voters. So you can actually use Discourse for quite clever things. If you're trying to make a decision in your community, and you can say, we'll have a quick poll to decide what we should maybe prioritize for the next work sprint or whatever. One nice feature is that if I want to quote somebody, then there's some really nice tools for doing that. So having just selected what other me replied, have you thought about adding an avatar image? I can just click that quote button, or I can use the quote button here, but I want to quote the selected bit, and it will automatically pull down what I selected and gives you a nice little display around it. So where that's useful is if you're replying to a long thread and several people have responded something, you could reply in one post to several things without it becoming confusing. Because I don't know, sometimes you've got like an email thread, people will reply to the last email thread and you can't tell whether they're replying to your reply or replying to a previous reply, and it's not always clear from the context. So here we go, I'm going to make it very clear. So Training Marcus said it was Discourse webinar, and I'm like, yes, I know. I wrote this. But then, have you thought about adding an avatar image? I replied to other Marcus to say, yes, I just did this. Thanks for the tip. And on the right, you can see my preview. Excuse me. Don't get whooping cough is my advice. I have been, I'm told, vaccinated against it, but it wears off. So my preview now reflects what is been put into the thread. And it's really clear who I was replying to and what they said, and what I can intersperse my replies really cleverly so that I'm improving this topic. I'm not making it more confusing. And that's the kind of thing that Discourse allows you to do that email just can't do. Not only do you not have the history, but the tools that are in Discourse just make it really nice and easy to communicate in a sort of constructive and simple way. What other tools have we got? So I can reply to any part of any post, and what that does is kind of makes it clear which post I was replying to. So if I was replying to the whole of that post, I can just click there. I can like it, and that's a nice thing, you know, if somebody's just posted something, rather than having to reply to say, oh yes, I agree, you can just click the like, which kind of gives you a notion of agreement without necessarily having to clutter the post with lots of people replying to say we agree. I can share a link to that post. So say if I was in the Discourse productivity tips and I found a productivity tip that I thought was like so awesome that I was going to tweet it, then I could tweet it. I can also reply to any given post as a new topic. So that's useful if a topic kind of diverges and you get a thread continues about one thing, but then you kind of want to split it off and say, just at this point, where you mentioned some related concept, I would just like to branch off, and so you can do that by replying as a new topic. So that would give me a little stub here that says continue the discussion, and it automatically puts a link there. So in my new topic, it's clear that I was continuing the discussion from Discourse webinar topic, and also gives me a link to go straight back there. So if I wanted to work out how it split off, then I could go back. So you can see how, again, it's tools for curating and collating good quality information, rather than just having emails flying everywhere. So I'm just going to cancel that for the moment and abandon that post. I could delete my post if I wanted to. I can bookmark it, and so that's one nice way of, if you find bits of information around in any discourse that you think are useful, you can just bookmark them, and your bookmark posts are visible when you go to your activity. So you can see activity bookmarks, and I bookmark that for future reference kind of thing. I could remove the bookmark, but that helps you to, again, gather knowledge resources that are useful to you. So we've been through categories, topics, posts. We've read some posts. We've liked. We've replied. We've done things like linking. We've done a search. We've posted a new topic. We have sorted out our profile and avatar. So really, you know, that's a lot to take in. That's a good amount of stuff to get you going with Discourse. I'll go through a couple of other things that will be helpful, because I think some people will be asking, can I not just use email, please? So Discourse integrates really nicely with email. So what I'm going to do is just demonstrate that. I'll just clean up my emails. So let's pop that up to there. And what you'll see, hopefully you're seeing my Gmail now. So the discussion that we've been having in Discourse gets emailed out as well. So this helps people who just don't want to go to the forum.greatnorthcarerecord.org.uk website and use Discourse as a web application. Now, I would always recommend using the web application because I find it's a much richer and cleaner way of viewing a discussion. But for those that don't want to do that, that's fine. We've got email. So you can see here I've got the email. It's come from the Great North Care Record network. The category it came from was training area, which should all be familiar because we've talked about where the category was. This is the topic name, and that's all the title. So that all goes into the title of the email, and it sends me out. This is the original post that I created. That's the reply. So it gets a little bit confusing because I'm replying to myself using my own email. So it's all getting thrown into one big thing. But essentially what you can see is that it creates a thread, just like it did on the actual web application. but for people who would rather use Outlook or would rather use Gmail, here you go. And if I reply right here in my replying right here from my email client, that will eventually get linked up back onto the original thread. And it takes a moment or so, because what's happening in the background is that Discourse has to wait for the reply to arrive, and then it periodically checks the incoming email account, and it does that every minute or two. So it doesn't immediately arrive in Discourse, but within a minute or two it will do. So what happens is it'll get sent, and this reply will be integrated, that's the word I'm struggling to find, into the Great North Care Record normal kind of view. So it'll just appear here in a minute or two. So that's a way that people who would prefer to use email can do. Let's put that back. Just a couple of other things about the email stuff. Obviously, we're sending out emails. It tells you why you're getting the email, mailing list mode. And if you want to unsubscribe, clicking here will take you to your account where you can set your preferences, including just switch off all emails. And if you click on this button, there's a topic, it will take you to the topic. Now, if I do that from here, from this browser, it will take me to the wrong bit, because I'm using two accounts at once. So, aha. And the reply that I did from email is there. So that's been put onto the right topic using Discourse magic. Discourse just knows when you email back, it knows how to connect it to the right discussion in the right way. So that means that people who are using email clients and people who are using the web application have the same experience in a way. You know, they're contributing to the same conversation, but they're just doing it in the way that suits them, which is nice. Whilst we're mentioning preferences to do with emails, let's go and show you how to get rid of all these emails if they're bothering you. Because I think one thing that we do get sometimes feedback from is if a new person joins a forum and they feel inundated with notifications about stuff that's activity on the forum, we'd want you to know how to control that. And there are lots of tools inside your account to change that. So I went to my profile, the sprocket, that takes you to preferences, and then on the left sidebar you can see I've got lots of options, and these are worth exploring if you're a power user of Discourse to sort of see what there is. Initially I was taken to emails, and we have chosen in the Great North Care Record to enable mailing list mode. Now what that does is sends an email for every new post. The reason we do that is because a lot of our users primarily use email as their main way of interacting with the Discourse forum. So if we didn't do that, there'd be no activity at all, because people wouldn't see new posts, they wouldn't be notified that someone had posted, and so they wouldn't know that there was a discussion to join. So mailing list mode kind of makes Discourse act like a normal old-fashioned mailing list on email. If it's bothering you, you've got a couple of options. You can, you've got an option to send an email for every new post except your own, so it will stop sending notifications about your own posts, which I suppose is a useful thing. You can just switch off mailing list mode. Now, if you do that, you won't get anything unless somebody mentions you or replies to an existing post or invites you to a topic. So a way to find a sort of halfway house between getting everything via mailing list mode and getting nothing is to use some of these notifications. So these categories, you can choose to watch a particular category. So for example, if I watch the training area, I will automatically get notifications about things that happen in the training area. So I can then choose the bits that I want to hear about, and I can also mute the areas I'm not interested in. So for example, if I've decided I do not want to hear about productivity tips, I can mute that area. And so that happens at category level. I can also I can mute the topic as well. So for example, if my own topic is starting to annoy me, I can mute it. So I do that by going to the topic itself, and here you've got a little set of tools that allow you to change whether you're watching it. Now I'm automatically watching it because I'm participating in it, but I could mute it as well. And there are various other options which I encourage you to explore. So that is a kind of whistle-stop tour of the main features of Discourse. And I think probably the next thing to do is open it up to the floor and just see if there's any questions from the attendees and if anybody wants to discuss anything further.
Hiya there. Well, we've got a couple of questions from Kai Sander. He's got some questions. I don't know if you can see them in the Q&A, just around private messaging, and I think maybe just sort of see the distinguish between a private message and a post. I suppose it's very similar to Twitter in that way, you know what I mean? Is it that I've directly replied to someone, or is it that I'm actually putting that message on the internet for everyone to see? Can you see those on the Q&A?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the, I didn't have the Q&A bit before.
Yeah, so he's saying, can you explain the difference between sending a private message or a post? How do I know what I'm doing?
Okay, right. So the default, I guess, if you're on the front page here of Discourse, new topic. So if you press the new topic button, you are now creating a new post. So that's the topic title might be whatever I want to talk about. We can choose which category to put it in. So for example, let's say a new testing topic, and we'll put it in testing again, in the training area. I could give it a tag if I'm interested. I could put testing or getting started. Tags enable people to find posts easier. And then I put my text in here and create a topic, and it will take me to where I created it. Now compare that with messaging. To access messaging, you go to your avatar at the top right and click the little messages button, and then very clearly the button you press is new message. So that's kind of how you know the difference, really. And although the composer that pops up is the same, it still says message and message. So it's reminding you at all times that this is a message. You also have to add a user, so I would have to put a name here, you know, of a user that I want to include in the discussion. So I can add multiple users, and so you can create little mini groups if you want to discuss something maybe offline that's not for the forum but needs a couple of people involved. It's a really flexible way of doing that. Clearly you could do that via email, but I don't know if you've ever done that and had the situation where you've got a reply all thing going on, and then somebody forgets to reply all and replies to just one of the people, and you all start to get out synchrony, and suddenly people in the thread have information that other people in the thread don't have, and it can rapidly degenerate into a farce. So using a group message, so I could use create a little group message about the webinar today, and that will go to us all. So the interface is slightly different for messages and for creating topics. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's probably something I hadn't noticed before, was that, you know, I mean, when you do create a topic, it does say creating topic. When you create a message, it does say message in the blue box at the bottom. I suppose that was something I'd not really noticed until then, when you just showed it. So hopefully that helps, Kai. Kai's got another question just about, can everyone in the group then read my email reply? So he'd sent that in a bit earlier. So I guess when it's on a message like that, then obviously it would just be those people in there. Whereas if you're replying on the topic, whether it's in your email, whether it's on the portal, everyone can see it, I guess.
Yeah. Messages are person to person, so they're private, and nobody, the forum admins could, if needed, see a private message, but no one else can. And the forum admins do not routinely look at private messages. So they are essentially as secure as an email person to person. So hopefully that answers the question.
Brilliant. I was going to ask as well just about tags. I mean, I guess this, for honestly, this has been really useful, I think, for me, because I've been a Discourse user for quite a while, and there was quite a lot of stuff there I didn't know. But no, I was just sort of wondering about tags and whether that's something that we should start using, or...
Yeah, they're a really useful thing. Sometimes there's a temptation to want a category for every kind of discussion. So we sometimes have, you know, a new event or a new type of software or a new trend in some professional domain, and people say, "Oh, can we have a category for it?" And sometimes it's tempting to just create categories everywhere. But what that does is kind of divides up all discussion, and sometimes makes it hard to actually see the wood for the trees. Whereas if you use tags for that, then it's just as easy for people to find all the things that are relevant. So picking a random example, if you were interested in artificial intelligence, we could create a tag for artificial intelligence, and any post anywhere on the whole forum that's tagged artificial intelligence, you could then search for that, and you'd find all the ones that were. Let's just abandon that. I'll do a demo. I'll demonstrate that. So if we decided to create a new topic, I will just have to do one little thing, because I don't know if you spotted in the background, I got an error because my training account is a new user, and there are limits on how many posts a new user can create in a 24-hour period. So I've just upgraded myself. So if we we want to do some tagging. We'll put it in training area. So if I jump the gun slightly, I want to put some tags in here. So artificial intelligence, create artificial intelligence, save edit. So that's now tagged with artificial intelligence. So in my search, it's already suggesting here that I might want to search for the tags artificial intelligence, and that brings me up everything that's been tagged in that way. So it gives you another dimension to organizing your posts. So we've got tags for things like getting started, so posts that are useful for people who have just started using Discourse. We've got stuff to do with testing. So it again just gives you another way of making it easier for the community to find the stuff that they need. So as we develop the forum, we can put more stuff in about maybe directly using the Great North Care Record itself. When that's available to users, we can start putting in user guide or user support, and we can either create tags for that, or if we find that we've got a ton of user support, then we might create, once we know that we've got a large area of that, we might put it into a category of its own. So
yeah, I think that kind of comes on to the next question was about finding older topics or documents that have been posted somewhere, perhaps even by me, and I can't remember where. So I guess there's a few things in there. I guess, using the bookmarks feature, so if you know at the time it's going to be useful, great, but sometimes you sort of see something, you can't remember exactly where it was, so whether, what can you sort of do in terms of sort of looking for sort of older topics or documents?
the search actually is as good as anything. If you're looking for a particular document, can you think of a document that you want me to search for?
HIE briefing pack. God knows where that is. I don't know myself where I put it. Right.
So I just searched for HIE, and that's the HIE briefing sliding pack. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one I was.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was just by searching HIE. It's very good at searching word fragments and things that wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if you've ever had a frustrating intranet search. Lots of intranets that I've experienced in hospitals and those kind of settings will have thousands of documents in there, but no way of searching for them because the search feature is so weak. Whereas Discourse's search is really nice, and it will tend to find things. So once you get used to sort of trusting the search and knowing that it will usually find the thing that you want, then you could, if you wanted to be more specific, you could put HIE brief, and that's given us a shorter list. Look, it's here as well. Slide deck briefing is in another thread, HIE questions. But yeah, you get rapidly to the bit you want, and with a lot less searching, a lot less sort of scrolling and manual looking around, which is exactly what you'd be after. Now, if you compare that with using email, so if this was an email list server, you'd have to search through your past emails. Now, that might work for you, and if it does, great, you can still do that because Discourse will integrate perfectly with email. So if you wanted to search all your Discourse messages, then you could just search that section of your email archive and you'd find it. But if it's something from before you joined, you wouldn't find it in your email, but you would find it on Discourse, the web application. So again, that's another reason to sort of use the forum, because you get the benefit of everything. Quite a lot of areas where I'm using Discourse for other communities, popular documents are things like job descriptions for chief clinical information officers and chief nursing information officers. And every 6 months, someone will ask the question. They will often post and say, has anyone got a job description for a CNIO? And we'll just direct them to the search box. And if they search there, they'll find all the previous ones from before they joined. And I think it's sort of a culture shock. People don't realize that they can find stuff from before they join. So they don't always immediately search, but I really encourage people to just play around with the search. And sometimes you find gold in previous discussions that you can contribute to, or something that you didn't know about and you can learn about. So it's a really useful feature.
That's great. We've also been asked as well, can I add new tags to my old post retrospectively?
You can. So let's go back to my testing topic. If I click on the pencil next to that topic, I can edit the title. I can recategorize it if I found that I'd put it in the wrong category, and I can add, let's add my artificial intelligence one to that as well. And then click the tick to save, and I've added the tag. So yes, you can add tags retrospectively, and that is a really nice thing to do for your community. If you realize that something you posted ages ago has relevance, you could go back and tag it all, And tags, you know, as I say, is one dimension of searching. You can also search by category. You can search by user. You can search by free text. So by and large, you've got a number of different ways to get to the topic you want.
Fab. So I think there might be a bit of homework for me and Lou around tagging, because
Yes.
I know I'm guilty of not really
Yeah.
using that feature.
No, I don't.
And I think probably for the users, it's making sure that they upload the photos, because I do see quite a few where people haven't got the pictures. So my photo's horrendous, so it's not a very flattering picture, but it was just to have a picture up there so people knew who I was. I don't know, we haven't got any other questions that have come in there. I don't know whether you've got anything else you want to ask about, or...
No, very much like the concept of the other me that you were describing there, Marcus, the other you. No, that was,
Who looks
that
different.
that was great, really helpful. And like you, Catherine, I've been using Discourse for a little while now. I've learned new ways to do.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really like about Discourse, there are a few different ways of doing things. I definitely think it's better than email, and that whole idea of organisational memory, finding things when you've joined a role or got a new responsibility or you're getting involved with something, having that access to the community to ask questions, but also find work that's already been done, I think is just such a fantastic opportunity for us. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, there's been a couple of videos as well that we have shared previously where Marcus talks through like the web app, because there is, like, you know, I mean, there's a really great way of accessing it through your smartphone. So we've got a quick little how-to video on that. So I'll share that with the participants afterwards, and I'll share the link as well to the recording. So I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add, Marcus, or you...
No, I think that's probably everything covered for a getting started, a familiarization type thing.
Brilliant.
And we should be able to put the recording of this webinar in Discourse, either as an embed or directly in as an upload, so people can watch it in Discourse. And we can also put around that links to the other videos that I've done about using your setting your notifications and setting it as a desktop app and all that kind of stuff, and setting it on your smartphone. So we'll do that.
Fabulous. Well, thanks. Thank you so much, Marcus, for beaming in from Yorkshire.
Thank you.
And taking us through that demo. And like we say,
Thank you very much.
We'll share all the links and everything afterwards with all the participants, and we'd just like to thank you all for joining us. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.